Trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you. And before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. Welcome to the Trading Game Part 3. Looking forward to sharing some additional insights with you today. In the first two sections of this webinar series, we talked first about the fact that most of what we deal with in life can be reduced to probabilities. And that's an unfortunate circumstance because lots of us like sure things, especially with trading. We want a sure thing. We want to make sure that it's going to work, and we want to have the confidence that comes from knowing it's going to work, which is, as we discussed, false confidence and doesn't really lead to a huge, giant amount of happiness. Then the very next day we talked about consequence, that deliverables without a consequence really aren't deliverables at all. And today I want to talk about goals and center more on a concept and a point that you've heard me speak about in the past. You've heard me say things like you can set goals or you can just do stuff. And that sounds pretty weird, but today I want to expand on that concept and share with you some of my thoughts about this very statement. So you can set goals or you can just do stuff. Here's my challenge to you. Stop, to the best of your ability, stop setting goals. I know that sounds crazy. I know it just sounds absolutely bizarre, but I want to talk today about stopping the process of setting goals. That perhaps goal setting is counterproductive. Let me offer to you a suggestion that goals offer false comfort. By setting a goal, you think you've got everything in place and you can feel comfortable again. Everything's going to be okay, and because you set the goal, you can relax. Goals are often not aligned with what makes us happiest. Goals are often aligned with external pressures. Someone sets a goal for you at work, someone sets a goal for you on the job, someone sets a goal for you in your relationship, someone sets a goal for you externally, and it's not aligned with happiness, it's just something that you have to get done. Goals assume that you need to do something when in reality, sometimes you don't need to do anything at all. Setting a goal to be a certain kind of a trader or accomplish a certain amount of stuff as a trader sometimes encourages you to take a lot of trades. If you set a goal to make a certain number of pips per week, then you're encouraged to take a bunch of trades. And sometimes not doing is as important as doing. And setting goals can be a little bit problematic. Now, we talked about deliverables, and I'm talking differently. I'm talking about goals. In the beginning of this week, we talked more about trading than we are today. With respect to trading, we did set a deliverable or a goal for you. We talked about the fact that by December 31st, you really need to decide what it is that you're going to do. And the reason that we did that is trading is kind of now your job. And to a certain extent, you don't have the same freedoms and the same ability to sort of mess around with trading as you used to. And we turned it into a job where you have a deliverable and a goal and a responsibility. And you don't really have absolute and giant amounts of freedom. Now that sounds terrible, and it's the truth. We kind of took away some of your freedom with respect to trading, and we said that you owe a deliverable by December 31st, and you owe a deliverable on a weekly basis. And goals don't really care about what makes you happy. They don't care about your family. They don't care about any of that stuff. You have to power through and achieve something that isn't necessarily what you really might want to do. And I'm not saying that life ought to be all happiness and roses and unicorns flying above your head with rainbows coming out of its butt. That's not what I'm saying. But I am telling you that once you have a responsibility in life and a deliverable, that's enough pressure. You don't need a giant additional amount of pressure on you to achieve something. Let's do an exercise in visualization. For a moment here, let me ask you the question. If you go back over the times in your life that have made you happiest or where you've felt the most peaceful, And I'm not asking you to state this out in the open or tell everybody exactly what you're thinking. But if you look back over the times in your life when you were the most peaceful, in particular peaceful, and not necessarily giantly happy or euphoric. I'm not talking about you won the World Series and your teammates are hoisting you above the pitcher's mound and you're the MVP of a sporting event, or you got a big project and you did the deal, and you feel euphoric and happy about that. What I'm talking about is most peaceful, when you felt most at rest and the happiest just to be yourself and calm about who you are and where you are in life. Can you think about 7 of those happy, peaceful moments with an emphasis on peaceful? You don't have to tell us about it. I'm not really interested in your particular peaceful moments that are private to you. I'll certainly share mine with you and maybe give you an idea of what kinds of things may apply to your situation. But what I do want to know is, tell me about your most peaceful and happy moments, what those moments were like, or just take a moment and visualize in your mind what those moments were. For me, those moments included, and I wrote these down quickly yesterday as I was thinking about this presentation. Off the top of my head, number 1 was writing The Miracle of Discipline. I wrote it in the first floor, the basement floor of the Brigham Young University Library in Provo, Utah, over a 2-week period of time during a snowstorm. I would go to the Brigham Young University Library and I would sit down there all day long and write for as long as I could possibly stand to do so. And then I would go back and hang out with my friend and family in the evenings. Number 2, living in Italy. I lived in Italy from 1990 to 1992. I used to run 2 miles to 3 miles a day around a giant castle in L'Aquila, Italy. And I remember finishing that run in the morning and just feeling absolutely peaceful with the way that I was conducting my life. It was pretty awesome. Number 3, reading the Sportswriter. It's a book by Richard Ford. It will probably bore the absolute hell out of you. But I used to read that book. I picked it up in a bookstore in San Francisco when I was in law school, and I read that book on the Judah tram from home to law school and from law school back to home over a week or 2 period of time. It was probably one of the most peaceful times in my life, just reading that book on the Judah tram. Number 4, Mrs. Holmes' 5th grade class, where she told me that I could be a writer. I'll never forget the experiences I had in that class, and she had a major and lasting effect on my life. I remember being very peaceful in her class and feeling like I was in the right place and doing the right things, and it was fantastic. Number 5, playing with my best friend Timmy in 1976. We built igloos. We did all kinds of crazy stuff in our neighborhood in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And that's an idyllic, super happy time and peaceful time in my life. Holding my son Isaac for the first time was super peaceful. When he was a baby, 2.5 weeks old or a month old, born in Michigan in the projects, went and adopted him. Holding him for the first time was ultra peaceful. And then I remember experiences where I used to sit in the office back east in West Virginia. I used to sit in my office at Piptopia, and I had a giant office, and it was totally peaceful, and I was totally alone, and I would get work done, and that was a really peaceful time. And those are just 7 experiences that I can look at that were ultra peaceful. I didn't set any goals here. I didn't have a goal with writing The Miracle of Discipline. I just sat down and wrote it. I didn't have a goal about living in Italy. I just lived in Italy. I didn't have a goal to finish The Sportswriter. I just read the book. I just liked the book, so I read it. I didn't have a goal to attend Mrs. Holmes' 5th grade class. It came naturally because I liked it to be there. I didn't have a goal to play with Timmy in 1976. I just did it. I was passionate about playing with my best friend Timmy. I didn't have a goal to hold Isaac for the first time. That's ridiculous. I held Isaac because I loved him. I didn't hold Isaac because I was setting a goal to do it. I didn't have a goal to sit alone at Piptopia. I just found myself sitting there alone when everybody had left for the day, and I had the office to myself again, and it was one big 3,000 square foot floor with huge windows. And I just sat there. It wasn't related to a goal. But these are some of the most peaceful times in my life. There are hundreds of additional times in my life that I could point to where I was peaceful. My question is, what were your 7 peaceful moments? Take a moment, if you can, and write some things down. Take a moment right now. We're going to pause the recording, And take a moment and think about, don't write them down in the chat room if you're watching this live or whatever else, but take a moment and keep them to yourself and write them down on a piece of paper or jot them into your phone's notepad application and tell yourself, what were 7 of the most peaceful moments that you had in your life? I'll give you a moment to do that. If you're struggling to know whether or not these times in your life ought to reflect accomplishment, the answer is no. We're not talking about accomplishment. We're not talking about a time in your life where you did something really special or you accomplished something significant, ran a marathon or whatever. Those aren't necessarily the times. They could be, but they're not necessarily the times. I'm not asking you to look back on times in your life where you achieved something, but rather where you felt something. It's not about what you achieved, but rather about what you felt. Now, what you felt could be related to what you achieved, so that could be absolutely possible. Could be a time when you sold all your real estate properties and were independently wealthy. It could certainly be something like that, but I'm looking for something deeper, something that you found that you were passionate about and you found that you were happy doing it. So you've got a partial list of moments in your life when you were peaceful. For some of you, it might have been when you were sitting down writing a particularly elegant piece of code and you were very satisfied with what you were doing and you just felt good about it. Maybe the code wasn't going to work, maybe it was going to work, but you felt peaceful about it. You felt good about what you were doing. You felt like you were doing the right thing and you were doing it because you wanted to do it and you were doing it because it made you peaceful. It could be a time in your life that you remember not having children and you were really peaceful and you were alone with your partner and those were peaceful moments. It could be a moment that you spent with a parent or a loved one. It could be a moment when you read your favorite book or listened to your favorite piece of music or had an association with an individual that just brings you a huge amount of comfort and peace to think about. My question to you is, why would you try to align your future to anything or with anything except for those moments? For a moment, consider that many people have peaceful moments in their life, but they spend an extraordinary amount of time in their life attempting to align their future with goals and with accomplishments, not necessarily with those experiences that they can look back on and be peaceful about. I often hear people say, I can relax again once I have achieved this certain goal. I can spend time with my family once I can be a writer once I can have time to do traveling when and they say that they cannot align their life with what makes them peaceful until they do some type of accomplishing. Well, the dirty little secret is it's very unlikely that you'll accomplish much of anything if you are exclusively focused on only accomplishing things. It's interesting and sort of a reversal of what you would expect, that at the times in your life where you are doing the things that you are most passionate about, that bring you the most amount of peace, you are typically also able to accomplish the most amount of things. Number one, writing The Miracle of Discipline, I did it not as a goal. I did it because I wanted to do it, and I was compelled from the inside out to do it. It went on to become possibly the most successful piece of writing that I've ever done, apart from Strategy 10, which is also something that I wrote because I felt passionate about it, not because I had a goal to distribute 500,000 copies of it. The Miracle of Discipline has probably been downloaded 250,000 times. It's an accomplishment that was generated from doing something that I was peaceful about. It's not an accomplishment that I set up purposefully. I didn't purposefully set up that accomplishment. Living in Italy isn't something I did because it was a goal. And running in L'Aquila every day for 2.5 or 3 miles around the castle wasn't a goal. It was something that I did because I was passionate about it and I loved doing it. And because of that, I accomplished the ability to learn a different language and live on my own independently, get back in touch with roots or ancestral connections. I accomplished something, but I was only doing what I was passionate about. Reading Richard Ford's The Sportswriter changed me as a writer and as a human forever. It was one of those books that just alters you for all time. It's not a book that might mean anything to you at all. I didn't set out to accomplish something from reading The Sportswriter, but reading that book and finding myself in that peaceful state of mind led me to finish a book draft, send it to a publisher, and be offered a writing contract to finish a novel. I made the mistake of not finishing that novel, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I accomplished something because I read the book. I didn't set out to accomplish something and then read the book to make me accomplish it. Mrs. Holmes' 5th grade class is the first time I ever did anything remotely similar to writing. She had us write a story every week. I didn't set a goal to be in her class or to enjoy it. But because I was in her class, I've had a lifelong love of writing. And I've accomplished things like publishing books because of that. Playing with Timmy in 1976 had nothing to do with setting goals. And I'm not sure I accomplished anything at all except I just had a really good time building igloos and whatever else. Holding my son for the first time wasn't a goal. I didn't accomplish that. But because I took the time to do that, adopt a child, spent tens of thousands of dollars to do it, when I held him, it changed my life forever and made me a different person. I accomplished different things because I was focusing on something that made me peaceful. Spending time alone at Piptopia wasn't an accomplishment in and of itself, but without having done that, many of the things that you've seen me done over the years, including trade successfully, could not have been done without those quiet moments spent alone at the office. And what I'm telling you is that without those peaceful, quiet moments as the centerpiece of your entire life, all of the goals that we set and the accomplishments that we want to achieve are not necessarily even possible. They're certainly not worth it, and they certainly won't bring any happiness. But I'm also telling you that that's why we tend to feel so much disruption in our life. We set goals, we fail to accomplish them, we don't know where we are. We set a goal at the beginning of the week to make 100 pips. And then we end up taking 2 or 3 trades on the pound dollar, and we're down 100 and we have to stop, and we think, well, holy crap, how did I get here? And the way we got there was we focused on the goal and the accomplishment, and we forgot along the way to make sure that our life was full of things that we were passionate about, and we didn't really feel balanced. And it's a tension that everyone has to come to grips with. There are people in the world that set goals and then passionately achieve those goals and check them off. But those are people also who are finding enormous amounts of pleasure in reaching those goals, and it's almost an end in and of itself. I want to ask you again, what were your 7 most peaceful moments? You could probably choose from hundreds. You don't have to choose any in particular, and it doesn't have to be a list that remains the same. What were the defining characteristics of those moments? And did those moments have anything to do with goals, or did they have to do with feelings? They might have had to do with goals, and that's perfectly acceptable. I don't have an opposition to that entirely. But I'm trying to ask you to tell me what you're really passionate about, or tell yourself what you're passionate about, and what brings you true happiness and peace of mind. Is it really trading? Or is trading just a deliverable? I suspect that for most people, trading is just a deliverable. I suspect for most people that trading should just be a deliverable. It should just be a job that you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do it well. In order to do it, you need to know what your probabilities are associated with the testing and the trading that you've done, and then you need to implement your trading to reach the deliverable that you've set the goal to achieve. But does that really bring you true happiness and peace of mind, or is that just a responsibility that you have? That's a question that you have to answer for yourself, and I don't want to propose that I absolutely know the answer for you. But I suspect that your trading will take a turn for the better when your life is more centered on some of these things, the things that bring you true happiness and peace of mind. And then you have the emotional staying power and the determination to deliver the results that you're supposed to with respect to trading. It's very hard to do that if your life takes on no balance at all, and you are so concentrated on trading to reach your goal that your life gets out of balance. If you want to be peaceful, you just do stuff. You don't really actually set any goals. For example, what if today, on this very day, you did the things that made you peaceful? You didn't set any goals. You didn't set any agendas. You didn't set any times for phone calls. You didn't set up any appointments. You didn't set a time and a specific responsibility to be someplace that you're supposed to be. You actually come and go as you please. You listen to what you want to listen to. You watch what you want to watch. You don't let anybody sort of get in the way of that. Does that mean that you're going to be a complete chucklehead, as Scott Welsh would say? Does that turn you into a complete dorkwad? Does that mean that you're going to end up laid out in the middle of the road after drinking like 2 bottles of whiskey and 4 packs of donuts? Does it mean that if you just do things that you want to do that make you peaceful, that you're not going to do anything at all? Well, that's absolutely untrue. It's absolutely untrue. I wrote a whole book. I lived in Italy. I read a book that changed my life. I went to school every day. I held my son for the first time. Those aren't wastes of time, but every one of those things I did by choice. And every one of those things that I did by choice led me to accomplish something that I could not have done otherwise. Every one of these things on this list I did by choice. I didn't do it because somebody forced me to do it. So given the opportunity to do what I wanted and what made me peaceful, I didn't turn into a persistent television watcher who never got anything done. I freed myself up to do what I really wanted to do. I gave myself permission to say, I'm not going to show up for the things that don't make me peaceful. I'm going to show up for what makes me peaceful. You know, holding Isaac for the first time was peaceful. It gave me a sense of responsibility, and it scared the bejesus out of me because I knew I had to take responsibility for a child. And so I was jumping off a precipice, and I was thrown into a difficult situation, of course. How was I going to be the father to a black child? I mean, in a world that was already had the odds stacked against my son for being born in the projects and whatever else. How was I going to cope with all of those things? What if he had learning disabilities? What if I can't trade for my 100 pips a week? What if I can't do it? What if I have a couple losses? What if I make a mistake? Of course, all of those things are true, but in that moment, I certainly didn't feel that any of those problems associated with the trajectory that I was on would change my mind about having Isaac. I did what made me peaceful. It's not that I didn't do anything at all. In fact, I submit to you that when you align your future plans, or you just simply align your future on a moment-to-moment basis with what makes you peaceful, that you're more likely to do more things. I find that when I'm not doing something that I love, I don't want to do anything at all. When I'm stuck in a job that I don't really care for, I find that every possible moment that I can, I waste as much time as possible. And I'm constantly seeking diversion because I want to get away from the responsibility. But when I'm doing something that brings me peace, I can't stop doing it. I can't stop moving forward on it because I'm just incredibly happy. And I'm not asking you to try this for a week. I'm asking you to try this for one day, either today or tomorrow. Delete from your life any phone calls that you have to make, any plans that you have to do, and do the things that truly bring you true peace of mind and happiness. I'm not saying go on vacation. I'm saying doing things that make you peaceful. It doesn't mean you don't have those phone calls, and it doesn't mean that you don't keep a schedule. Perhaps keeping a schedule is exactly what you need to do. Maybe finally having lunch with somebody you've been meaning to have lunch with forever is exactly what you should do, and that requires you to be on time somewhere. But I'm asking you, how much of your life is externally enforced by deliverables that you have to give to someone else, and how much of your life is structured around the things that you know are right for you? I'm not asking you to quit your job and become a hobo, although for some of you that might be a good idea. I'm not asking you to drop everything and lay on the couch. But But I'm asking you, are you lining up your life with what brings you most true peace of mind and happiness? And I'm also saying that seeking a peaceful lifestyle rather than an accomplishment lifestyle is a way to actually accomplish more. It's the paradox of accomplishment, that as soon as you take the pressure off of the accomplishment and put the emphasis on doing things that you love or things that you are naturally passionate about, you are inclined to accomplish more. Some of the things that you're passionate about don't make any money. I didn't make $1 from holding my son Isaac, but I made millions of dollars after holding Isaac. Do you see the connection? If I'd just gone out and tried to make millions of dollars and I skipped the part where I got Isaac, I'm not sure I'd be the same person that could accomplish the things that I did afterwards. It's not a chicken and an egg problem. It's not that at all. There's a clear indication, as far as I'm concerned, as to what comes first. And it's the peaceful lifestyle that comes first. So if you live passionately and you do things that are important, and by important I mean things that bring peace of mind and true happiness, you end up actually accomplishing more than maybe you ever thought was possible. And let's tie that back into trading. Let's wrap it all up and tie it back into trading. From the very beginning of the week, I offered to you the suggestion that the trading game is all about playing by a certain set of rules. That trading and life are just games, and the rules are really messed up. And you can try to change the rules of the game that you're playing, or you can play a new game altogether. That life and trading is all about probabilities. And even when you know those probabilities associated with past performance, you can't even reliably apply those probabilities to the future and not have those things screwed up. There are entire hedge funds and financial firms that blew up in the face of the probability that they would never blow up. And the same is true of relationships and everything else in life. Things fall apart. Some things don't go well. And even with probabilities in our favor, sometimes things don't go right. And then we next talked about the fact that given the fact that life and trading are just a set of probabilities, and those probabilities aren't sure things, the best that you can do is tie yourself to a deliverable and not make any exceptions or excuses for how you are going to deliver stuff. Deliverables, a specific result delivered by a certain date with a consequence. And the tying in of the consequence means that we don't let the probabilities keep us from accomplishment. It keeps us on track. It doesn't guarantee success, but it makes the delivery of a specific result far more certain than it was before. And what I've wrapped it all up by saying is that if you seek a peaceful lifestyle rather than an accomplishment lifestyle, you're going to end up delivering things that truly matter, as opposed to delivering things that someone else told you you need to deliver. Some of the things that you might decide that are deliverables really won't even have specific dates and won't have specific consequences. You just do them. I was on the phone with somebody yesterday talking about private training, and he wanted to hire me to speak with him on the phone every day and work with him directly and personally and whatever else. And I said, if we go down this road together, it's not a if you become successful type of a situation. I'm passionate enough about this process that it's going to happen. It's not a goal, and it's not even a deliverable. It's just going to happen. And when you do things that you're passionate about, you're just doing them. You're not setting a goal to get somewhere by a certain date. You're just doing it. It's goal setting on steroids. It's goal setting without the, without the external emphasis that bores the crap out of you. There's a big difference between a specific result delivered by a certain date with a consequence and simply doing things and finishing them that you're passionate about. Some things in life require you to give a deliverable. You are required by December 31st to either have a plan related to your trading, even if you've done no live trading, have the plan in place that you know what kind of trading you're going to do, or by December 31st, a certain number of pips. Period. You know that's your deliverable, and that's externally enforced. You need to get that done, and you need to show up for work every day to do that. If that doesn't really bring you true happiness and peace of mind to accomplish, maybe that's not the right thing for you to do. If you find yourself uneasy about it, if it's not something that you heartily accept and readily accept with happiness, then perhaps there's some other thing that you should be doing. Some other way to seek a peaceful lifestyle rather than an accomplishment lifestyle that is based on doing things that other people want you to do. That's my challenge to you in this webinar series, is to live more passionately and do things that are important and that bring you true happiness and peace of mind.